You're from Hamilton, Ontario,
Yes.
Canada. Um, was there any music scene there?
Yeah, there's a great music scene. A couple really great bands have come out of Hamilton. Currently, right now, there's a band called the Arkells, who are also kind of a rock band, more on the pop side of the rock spectrum. But they're friends of ours, and they're doing very well. And it's a very supportive scene in general. We have a lot of great artists and a lot of people that are very willing to support everybody in the scene. And not only that, we have our own kind of like an awards show that we just had like a week ago. And it's all designed to kind of celebrate the music from the city.
And what sort of music did you have access to when you grew up over there?
I had a lot of access to just classic rock music that my father grew up on because he had a lot of vinyls and cassettes that he kind of just accumulated over the years of being a young adult. And I really kind of just grew up on his collection, which was a lot of Grand Funk Railroad, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, a lot of that stuff. And so he kind of weaned me on it. I started off with kind of Buddy Holly and the Beach Boys, and kind of graduated to the heavier side of classic rock throughout the 70s.
And what do you think now, still now, if you compare, let's say, Buddy Holly and the Beach Boys to the classic rock from the 70s? Do you still listen to it a lot? I mean, the Beach Boys and the Buddy Holly?
It's still some of my favorite music, if not my favorite music to listen to. I just really love how much is rooted in song structure and how much is like designed and focused on really truly just serving the song and making sure that it's as good as possible, whether that's through kind of vocal hooks or melodies or just the pure arrangement factor where they're just really focused on that's what's kind of great about some of the songs in the 50s. They're like 2 minutes long, and they really just they're almost like jingles. They like really cut all the fat and it's just two hooks and it's over. And it's like you just want to keep listening to it over and over again. I love that aspect of it, and it's kind of something that we took into we concerned ourselves with when writing our songs. We really wanted to kind of have the same kind of idea where you're just really hitting people with hook after hook.
Is it just a quick thought? Is it maybe then once the songs got longer and once there came more instrumentation and
Right.
more layers of sound, that maybe the actual songwriting maybe slipped a bit throughout the years?
I don't think so. I mean, there's definitely something to be said for having an overbearing song that's way too long, but I think what happened a lot, I think a lot of drugs got involved. And in that process, I think you get more comfortable with hanging around longer. And you get more experimental with different sounds and landscapes of sonics where you're willing to kind of drift off into these other areas. And I think there's a lot of 70s music that do have those like 6, 7, 8 minute songs that are amazing and are just as impressive for the fact that they're able to be that long and still are so well written. And so it's really just the evolution of kind of songwriting where people we're either drunk or high or both, or maybe we're just adventurous and very trying to do something new and something different. And I think there's a lot to be said for being able to pull those things off. And it's something that we've also done with our music, where we've had 6 and 7 minute ballads that have kind of run the gamut and feel comfortable at that length. Excuse me.
No problem. Is it, well, you mentioned the 60s with the Beach Boys and the 50s even with Buddy Holly. You mentioned the 70s. So what happened to the 80s, 90s, and the zeros?
Not a lot of 80s music I'm interested in. There's a lot of glam rock and puffy shirts and makeup and shit that I just can't be concerned with. It was also when I was like 9 and 10 years old. I mean, there is some great music from that era. I like the Cars, and I'm trying to think of some other music from there that I really kind of...
Maybe?
You know what? I have nothing but the utmost respect for him, but it wasn't something I listened to. It wasn't something I grew up on. I was really basic meat and potatoes rock and roll music. Like, it really was all about that for me, and I kind of skipped the 80s and went straight into the grunge era, which is something that resonated with me because I think a lot of the grunge era was inspired by the 70s, but they were trying to make it their own and really do something different that they could call their own.
Can you pinpoint what was exactly taken from the 70s, in your opinion? What was it?
I think just the reckless abandon. It was really just the the complete upheaval of whatever the status quo was and doing something fresh and new that that was not kind of predicated on something before it. It was really, they wanted to kind of break the mold and do something else, and they wanted to separate themselves from what the mainstream was at that time. And of course the irony there is that in doing that they ended up creating something so popular that it became the mainstream, which is how I got access to it, because I was only about 13 years old at the time, so I wouldn't have heard Nirvana at a 300-person club in Seattle. It had to be thrusted into my face on MTV or on Much Music for me to be able to get access to it, which is exactly what happened. And once I got access to those bands and that genre of music, that was when I really started to feel like I had a place to belong, and it also gave me the kind of feeling that I was able to be a part of it, and that was when I picked up a guitar. Whereas before that, I was really just listening to classic rock music, and as much as I loved it, I didn't feel a part of it, and I didn't feel like I could be a part of it. I didn't feel like I could be in a band like Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath, because it was so before my time, and it was also very intricate. And like, you listen to some of Jimmy Page's guitar playing and some of the songwriting, and it's not accessible. As a 12-year-old, listening to it, you don't think you can do that. He seems like a god. So getting into the grunge era, and all of a sudden the guys looked like me. They were playing a simpler style of rock, and it became all of a sudden something I wanted to be a part of.